Was it a good trip?
All right, good afternoon, well, not quite, good morning. Today is April 14th. I'm sorry, today is, April 14th, 2026, and I'm going to call a meeting of the Minnesota Supervised Release Board to order. We will start with a roll call of members. Member Christine Bray.
Here.
Member Andrew Larson.
Here.
Member Cheryl Ramstad.
Here.
And Paul Schnell is present. We do have one vacant seat. However, we do have a quorum met. And with that, we will call the first case.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Rush City, can you hear me? Can you hear us okay at Rush City?
They're muted, so. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Yep, now we
thank you
can.
very much for checking in. Good morning, everyone. Rebecca Holmes Larson, Executive Officer of Hearings and Release and the Supervised Release Board. We are here today to review Charles Wesley Andrews, who is participating through live stream video from the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Rush City. Mr. Andrews, did your advocate get online here with us today? Excuse me?
Not on.
He's not on. Okay, it looks like your advocate is not connected. Did you get any information stating whether or not he's not participating?
Yes, he said he would. Did he get in touch with you?
I haven't heard anything.
Did you call him? He said,
I called him, we talked, and then an email went out, so I'm not sure if anything
officer,
has changed.
yeah, officer, West Hushaw.
Okay. All right, well, it looks like he isn't here with us right now. If he does join here shortly, we'll certainly get his input if that's all right with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Here with me at the Minnesota Department of Corrections Central Office is our Commissioner and Chair of the Supervised Release Board, Mr. Paul Schnell, along with the board members that he just introduced to you. Our records indicate that on August 7th, 1984, in the city of St. Paul, Minnesota, during a domestic dispute, Charles Andrews stabbed Denise Alford in the back with a butcher knife. Denise Alford's younger brother, Gary, was living in the residence. When he heard the disturbance, he attempted to confront Charles Andrews. Charles pushed Gregory down the basement stairway and then fled the residence. When Gregory gained consciousness, he went upstairs and found his sister, Denise Alford, dead in a large pool of blood with a knife in her back. Gregory called the police for an ambulance. On November 5th of 1984, Charles Andrews was sentenced to a life sentence for the offense of first-degree murder in Ramsey County District Court. At the time of this offense, the minimum term of imprisonment for a life sentence was 17 years. Mr. Andrews has been previously reviewed by the Commissioner and an advisory panel 9 times and continued for a future review each time. Today's review represents his 10th review after serving approximately 41 years of incarceration. His minimum parole eligibility date occurred on August 6th of 2001. Thank you. I turn this matter over to the board.
Good morning, Mr. Andrews. How are you?
I'm making it good.
I'd like to start off by asking you to tell the board what it is you'd like to see happen as a result of today's meeting.
Well, today's meeting, I wish, hope that you release me from prison.
Tell us why you think that would be appropriate.
Well, because of I have a lot of people believe in my innocence. If they did, they wouldn't took my case and looked at it. And the other thing is, I don't have money to get a lawyer at the time, and so I had Mr. Ellis. He done written me 2 letters there, and plus, I'm innocent. And I didn't have the money for a lawyer. And then two, it's other things that went on with that. When I was, before I went to court.
So, and I know you're aware of this, that this board has no influence over determining guilt or innocence, right?
Yes,
And so one of the things that that we look at is just how you've been doing, and then
mhm.
also the question of the things that you were asked to do. There was discussion about some level of a neuropsychological evaluation. And was that something that you were willing to do?
Willing to do like what you mean? I don't understand. I don't understand. Oh, you talking about talking to the psychiatrist?
Yeah.
Well, I had talked to one psychiatrist, Dr. Terry, uh, and he gave me a good evaluation.
And when was that one?
That was in 2017.
One of the things I think as we look at this, that I think there was some question about, just just your neurological status and your cognition, some of those sorts of things. How do you feel you're doing?
I feel done. You talking about my health? You
Your
talking about
health,
this?
your thinking, your cognition.
Okay. My health is it's it's not that good, and for getting along with people's, I think that's good. Uh, Plus, they gave me a job when I come down here, and I work well with people's, with staff too. With my health, I had a lung operation, uh, and on my left lung, on my right lung, and that's not doing it good. Other than that, I'm doing pretty good, but it's my spine is deteriorating and everything, and I do the best I can to move around. Uh, and but they can't stop the bleeding. That's the main thing. Um, they gave me a new medication, but it haven't stopped since I come here on the 17th of this year. No, last year, 17th last year. I come to 17th, July 17th. And it's a constant thing. I cough up blood. But I don't know what it is. They took a blob out and out of my lung that the doctor that they told me down um, at Region Hospital that he wouldn't give me the right medication. So what they done, they gave me another medication, but they did operation on me and folded my lung over. But that's the only thing I got. It don't stop bleeding, and I try not to cough too much. But I try to move around to keep from getting blood clots. I get blood clots in my right leg, my left leg.
Right.
It swells. I had to move as much as possible to keep it go down, elevate it.
Yeah. What are you doing for work now?
Oh, I was working at Anagram before they closed. They gave me a accommodator gave me a job out there for in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
They gave me that and that right there. Then they gave me that and a table. And then they would bring my work to me.
Okay.
And then I would fold, I was sleeving and then folding balloons. I did that before they closed, they left.
Yeah, yeah, I'm aware, which is unfortunate.
But I applied for something else. I've been applying for, a swamper, so I can, just clean the tables in the microwave.
Yeah,
But I never got hired.
okay. Well, let me ask this question. Do you think that it would make sense for you to step down in custody levels, to go down to medium?
Oh, I thought this was medium.
And do you think there would be no problem with you doing that?
No, it won't be no problem. Well, what my understanding of this it was medium. When I was at Oak Park, so I come from the hospital over here. I come from the TCU at Oak Park
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah,
And
you're at Rush now, right?
yes, I'm at Rush, and what they were telling me, it was medium.
No, you're in close custody there. Have you had any issues or behavioral stuff that has been a big problem?
I understand. I understand the last word you said.
The discipline that have you had disciplinary things that have been a big issue at all recently?
No. No, I haven't.
Okay. All right. I'm going to open this up to other board members for any questions that you may have for Mr. Wesley, or Mr. Andrews, rather.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
the paperwork we got suggests that you really haven't done a release plan, that you're talking about going, I believe, to Detroit and talking
Mhm.
about some support there, but that you didn't flesh it out and give any details, and that you were going to defer and discuss that with this group.
Mhm.
Have you done anything along those lines? Have you made any contacts in Detroit? Do you have a plan? Do you have
Yes,
any?
I made some contact there, but I've been making contact every time I come to the board. And they, but I never was released. And so what they asked me, I had Mr. John Travis, he is a architect. Then I had also got Mr. Gasson that owns his own business. All of them own their own business. And then have Mr. Jerry Brown and a lot of other people. And what it is, they also got a place there for the homeless. And they you stay one group for about a month, then they move you to another home. And then from there, then they get you a apartment and with assistance.
Did they send
And-
you any information regarding this, or have you had any correspondence with them fleshing this out, what it looks like and what the availability would be for
Yes, I
you?
talked to, the last person I talked to was Mr. John Travers. And when he explained it to me, the reason why he wasn't accepting calls, because his wife is she's a lieutenant, policeman. And then I told him, well, once I talk to the board, then I can get back with him, and talk to him. But they got, and he told me, he just told me I couldn't, he couldn't accept calls because his wife was a lieutenant policeman. And after I talked to him, then he said, well, I know who you are. So then after that, I said, well, I'm gonna be going to the board soon. Because every time I was getting all the things, everything situated, but nothing ever happened. But I'm sure I can call him back up and talk to him if it, get assistance. But Michigan, Detroit have plenty of that.
Now, he's in Detroit, is he?
Yes, he's Detroit.
And is he in charge of this homeless shelter you referred to?
No, he's not in charge. He owns property, buildings.
Okay. Okay. It's my understanding, Mr. Andrews, that you really haven't ever consulted with or had any therapy with a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Yes, I did. Yes, I had. I had one before. His name is Terry Barker. It's a Backer. Backes. I had one with him, 2017, and he gave me a real good report, and I got it right here.
So that was your interaction with psychiatry or psychotherapist was one time in 2017. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
It was an
Okay.
assessment.
I
It
got
was
it
an
here.
it was an assessment, right?
Yes, evaluation.
Okay.
I got it here. And he gave me good remarks.
Have you been asked to do any subsequently that you've refused or declined because you don't want to talk about the offense?
Yeah, yes, because what I had Mr. Ellis, and I was advised with some more attorneys don't not to talk about it. And I have I got the different attorneys I talked to, and the last two I got Mr. Ellis here, Keith Ellis, 2020 January the 20th, 2026. Then I also got another one. I got that. Do you want to see this? Okay.
Is
okay.
that Keith Ellison you're referring to, the Attorney General?
Yes.
And does he explicitly say, don't talk about your?
No. He didn't he didn't say that. But other attorneys told me, don't talk about it. Just wait until they get in front of them. And that was his name was Cooper, Mr. Cooper, Steve Cooper. Because I was trying to raise money to get him. But then I also got I got two letters from Mr. Keith Ellison. Got one September 19th, and I got the other one. It's February.
And that's the conviction, review unit?
Yes, they were reviewing my case.
Have they come to a conclusion as to whether they're going to do anything with respect to your case?
Well, the last one, they told me the one in January that they told me okay, they told me if I receive this letter, that means your application is currently pending review by CRU.
Okay. So right now, as far as you know, the status is it's currently pending.
Yes.
Okay.
I got about 2 or 3, about maybe 5 or 6 letters that they telling me they would give me what number I was. And now it's no more number. I was number 1026 and all the way down to 200. And then now it's no number. They're just telling me it's under review now.
Are you
They
saying
don't-
that they told you that that was how many cases were ahead of you?
Yes,
Before they
yes,
could get to your case? Okay,
yes, before they
right.
got to my case.
okay.
And now they are telling me now, if I receive this letter, it's still pending. It's pending. This one I got in February.
Okay, so the reason you're not participating in the comprehensive risk assessment and talking to people to want to assess you is because of what Steve Cooper, who you did not retain as a lawyer, told you how many years ago?
Oh, that's not no years ago. That was that was in November
Okay,
of last year, 25.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. I don't have any further questions for you at this time.
Yes.
Mr. Andrews, is the reason you haven't done that neuropsychological because you're waiting to hear about your life sentence crime? Is that why you haven't participated when you were told to?
Yes, yes. And when I talk on the phone, they tell me they would tell me don't say nothing else, when I be talking, they just tell me to stop. Don't say anything else. Until they get it, get with me, do my caseworker or whatever.
Mr. Andrews, just one
Yeah.
quick question. Is Michigan the only place that you would look to go? What about staying in Minnesota? Is that something that would be viable or possible?
Well, reason why I said Michigan, because they got a lot of resource there. And, I just got a letter from, Minnesota, from the health service here in Minnesota. Because I got so many problems now, they gave me, name is, I just got the letter in. Now, Minnesota, I just got a letter, April 2nd to me. They told me I got insurance. They signed me up for insurance and everything in May. It'll start in May of this year. So that's what I need. I was want to go there because right now I'm thinking about my health now.
Yeah.
And they signed me up for insurance, and it'd be effective May 26th of this year. Ooh, May 1st of this year.
So I think what, this question about Michigan versus Minnesota
Okay.
is one thing to plan, because look, I think, we realize that you have a range of medical issues that have to get addressed, right? And if you were to be released, you're going to require a level of support to manage those medical conditions. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And so, that's why I asked the question about staying in Minnesota, because I think, if the board at some point in time were to take up and grant you some level of relief through a parole here, it would need to be with adequate levels of services to help you manage your medical needs.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that, when we talk about this neuropsychological evaluation, it's a little different than the traditional evaluation that you may have had in 2017 prior to a review. It really is about, sometimes, and I'll be the first to tell you that sometimes this happens even for me, that the older I get, sometimes my clarity of thinking is not quite the same.
Yes, true.
And so that a neuropsychological evaluation really looks to help assess the extent to which that may be impacting you. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense what you just said. It makes sense. I didn't
And
think
so-
of it that way.
Yeah, so it's really different than more your, the psychological, the risk assessment, which, is certainly one of the factors that we want to look at. But we also want to make sure that, just with age and just the stuff you've been through, that there isn't cognitive decline that happens to all of us as we age. But then, we can also have other things that can come up, whether that's, levels of dementia or different memory issues or things like that. And that's what the neuropsychological evaluation is intended to address.
Yes.
Given that understanding, does that make you more willing to consider doing that?
Yes, it would. I didn't think of it like that, because, and it is true what you're saying, because certain things that, at one time when I took this one, with the psychiatrist, and my memory was real good, and something like now, I sort of have to think, and get things in order to, answer the different questions, like I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah, because I think one of the things we heard, Mr. Andrews, was that, sometimes, staff felt like, you do great, right? You're doing really good today here, and just in terms of this conversation, but sometimes you would stray or whatever, or, lose a sense of track. And I can tell you that, that happens to me on occasion as well, but that becomes a concern, especially as we age, right? And then the range of medical concerns that you have and so forth. So it would really be nice to have that, because I think it would also help, whether it's our medical release planners or whatever this would look like. Because I think, just speaking for myself as a board member, I really would want to have a sense of clarity about where you're going, and that you have the necessary support to be out there and be successful and not have any issues, and to be outside the confines of the prison if that were warranted and there was a reasonable plan. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes more sense now since, you talked to me about it. Yes, I'm willing to do that.
Okay. Any other questions from board members?
Just
Oh,
wanted to ask you, Mr. Andrews, my understanding is you have regular contact with 3 children that you have, like monthly contact, is that right? Phone?
yes.
Where are they located?
Michigan.
Have you talked to them about what would happen if you were to be discharged to Michigan?
Yes, I talked to Donald, yeah, all of them.
Have they offered any advice or support or recommendations to you?
Yes. And also other family members too.
Okay, I don't have any further questions, Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews, not hearing any other board member questions. We do not have, your support person is not on at this time, so we don't know exactly where that's at. But before we begin to have some discussions and deliberation about next steps for you, I want to just open the floor to you for your final thoughts, questions, or anything that you want the board to be aware of.
Or just in general? Okay.
Just in general, whatever it is you'd like to share.
okay.
if anything.
Well, anyway, I have, my social security, that I work for. I have, plus I'm a artist that you know of. And I can support myself. But the main thing is the first month or so, to get things in order. To get my social security and everything. Plus I got a letter from them, to sign up right away. And I believe I can be, and plus I got family help if I need to rely on them. I got that. I got sisters and brothers. And plus I got in Detroit, I got a lot of people there that can help me out. And the reason why I say Detroit, because I know my way around Detroit. If I need to go to a hospital or whatever, stuff like that, I know where they all are. And another thing too, is I can't do too much work because my back material is deteriorating. And plus I'm an artist and I know, that alone, I can support myself, but I do have, my social security that I work for, and I got Medicare and Medicaid. I got that, eligible for that. And,
Okay.
well, I got the, large 42, then they will help me out. Yeah. It's in Detroit.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. With that, I'm going to close this portion of the discussion and open it up for board discussion. And during board discussion and deliberation, the board will not entertain questions or allow interruptions. And with that, I would just open this to the board for discussion.
I think what I'm struggling, I mean, I think my biggest concern is maybe the need for the neuropsych, especially because he seems willing to go now.
Yeah.
To help us understand where he is cognitively. Because I wonder if, I don't know at which point we can get a medical release planner involved. I don't think he's a threat to public safety. But we would need a written release plan at a minimum, the neuropsych. So I'm just throwing that out. I would mention or make a motion, deny parole. I'm not sure how long to continue for, maybe 2 to 3 years. I don't know how long it'll take for him to get some more information to us. And I just question why he's still at Rush.
And I mean, I certainly would look to make a transfer to a lower custody level. You know, and just because I think because of his medical condition, and I think just for the sake of review, you know, I was thinking, and I you know, you have a motion on the table here,
Yeah.
but I would be inclined to second, but I'm just wondering if what your thoughts are about talking about that term of continuance. I'm wondering about like 18 months, and I say this only for this purpose, that we could get move him to a lower custody level, get the neuropsych done, which he's talked about being willing to do now, and a medical release planner to get some clarity around like what a plan could even look like, and then come back to the board and have a discussion about whether or not they're on track and is that something that's viable. It was kind of one of the thoughts. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that. And,
18 months is fine with me.
all right, so I'll make a second of that. So there's a motion and a second. Further discussion or thoughts?
I'll only just comment that I agree with what Chris said. I do also wonder about the involvement of medical release planner. Honestly, it's so hard to even know where to go with it because
Right.
there just is no concrete plan. There's just nothing. So I'm in agreement with the 18 months. I think hopefully the neurocycle provides some insight and hopefully some release planning, medical release planning options. So I'm in agreement with the direction.
I think it would be nice to have a sense of what the true needs are now and perhaps into a bit of the future. And then I think that will also inform the release planning process. So are there any other thoughts?
I would agree.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a plan that, and then I would just add that the standard conditions just to, you know, remain discipline free, and that does not appear to be an issue. And I would also just say that any positive programming that you want to be involved in. I hear the reference to art and so forth. And I noticed that, you were involved with art from the inside and then maybe didn't stay with that. And, but I would just encourage you to be involved in any type of, activity that you could. So there is a motion and a second. We have to denial approval, 18-month continuance with the conditions as spelled out. To the motion, Board Member Bray?
Could I ask a question,
Yes,
please?
absolutely.
Clarification, you had mentioned transfer to a lower custody facility. Would that be a recommendation from the board? I know that you want to defer to the prison itself, but would that be something that we could recommend?
Yeah, I would want him to be moved to medium custody. I think, just even, and they can determine where, which if it's best at Faribault with Linden, or, where that would be best is, I think it would defer to them, wherever he can get his needs met best.
Thank you.
Okay, to the motion, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead.
Yes.
And Schnell votes yes. So, Mr. Andrews, you've heard the conversation here. So here's where we sit. I think you're hearing some indication from the board that, we'd like to have a plan to be able to move you forward or get you into a place where your needs can be met. That, we don't have major kind of public safety concerns at this stage, but we really want to be in a place where we're responsibly moving you forward and having a sense of what your needs are and what your release is going to look like. So what we would do is continue you for 18 months. You'd come back and see the board at that time. But in the meantime, you'd do that neuropsychological evaluation, which I hope you're willing to follow through on, because that I think could be helpful for you in terms of understanding perhaps some of the things that you may be experiencing. And it would be helpful for us and for a release planner. And then we would get a medical release planner involved with you to help think about like what your needs are and where that could be met. And if that's in Michigan, we can look at interstate. But remember, interstate requires that Michigan has to accept that. And so you have to almost have a plan in Minnesota as well as there. But that's something that could be looked at and discussed by the release planner once we have a better sense of what your needs are. And then we want you to remain discipline-free and engage in any positive programming that that you can or should. And we move you down to medium when that can be arranged. Your thoughts on that make sense? Or
Yeah, yes, okay, I had art from the inside. I stayed with that until I went to the hospital.
Oh, okay. So it was okay, perfect.
Yeah, see, when I went to the hospital, okay, I had did 2 pictures, 2
Okay.
drawings. And those are the one I will put in, because you asked me yourself that I have sell anything. So those were the 2 pictures that I'm gonna put in. And so you can take a look at it, but Lieutenant Keffer, when I went to the hospital, they told me that when I sent them a kite over there, they told me they sent everything to my family member in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And but they never did send it there, Lieutenant Keffer. And then they sent me one back, said they destroyed it. And you know for yourself that you don't destroy the kind of artwork I do.
No,
That was
was
the
that
one that I was
at
going.
Oak Park, you saying that happened?
No, yeah, I was at Oak Park
At the time?
Hospital when they moved me, but they moved my stuff from they moved it from Stillwater property. And
Okay.
my 2 pictures were not in there. And Lieutenant Careful said they sent it to Michigan, East Point, Michigan, to Zandora. His name is Zandora Gatsa, but he
Okay.
never received it.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll do some looking into this and, I'll check with Stillwater and the lieutenant, and just see if we can track where that at. I certainly don't want your art to be destroyed. Have you done any recent art?
Yes, I did. I did some. I'm doing some in there right now. some little pieces, but see, you couldn't get I didn't get they wouldn't send my big board and everything, the 18 by 20. And so I'm just working on some little small stuff now.
Okay.
So the other pieces, those are the ones I'm gonna put in, art from the inside, so you can take a look at it
Okay.
and see that you are, what you're interested, whatever.
Yeah. So
And-
will you ask somebody there? Maybe I'll ask your case manager if somebody can snap a couple pictures of some of the work you're working on and send it down to me. I'd just like to
Yes,
see it. And we
yes.
can share it. Just because I'm just interested in what you're doing. Okay.
Yes, I can send, what we can do,
Charles, I'll work with you on that.
Huh?
I'll work with you on that.
okay, well, okay, another thing I can do, I can send you, the whole list, the whole 42 pictures that I got, I can just send them to the Department of Correction, and you can get them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll help you get them. I just, again, I
I'm talking about what I
want to
can- I'm talking what I
acknowledge, I
have
want to
my own.
acknowledge some of the good stuff you're doing and that art and your,
Okay.
obviously if it sounds like that's means something to you. And I'd like to, I would like you to share it with us. And so,
Okay,
all right.
okay, I can do that.
All right. Thank you, sir. We wish you well. Your team there will help facilitate a plan and work with you as part of that to get you moved with health services involvement, because we want to make sure you get to a place where you can get your needs met. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
All right,
sir.
thank
Take care.
Mhm.
Ready already?
Mine too.
Afternoon. Can you hear us there at Moose Lake?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll be with you in just a minute. We have, yeah, I think.
She wasn't at the original.
Okay, thank you. Let's start out with the introduction or her statement. You want me to do this first or that?
Why don't you do that in case of-
Sounds good. All right, good afternoon. Rebecca Holmes Larson, Executive Officer of the Hearings and Release and Supervised Release Board. We are here today to review Louis Buggs, who is participating through live stream video from the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Moose Lake. Mr. Buggs also has an advocate participating today, Mr. Schubert. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Here with me at the Minnesota Department of Corrections Central Office is our Commissioner and Chair of the Supervised Release Board, Mr. Paul Schnell, along with board members Cheryl Ramstead, Christine Bray, and Andrew Larson. Our records indicate that on February 14th, 1996, Minneapolis police officers were dispatched to an assembly plant in Minneapolis regarding a report of a shooting. Officers located the victim, Cami Marie Talley, in a women's restroom lying on her back on the floor. Paramedics transported the victim to Hennepin County Medical Center for treatment of numerous gunshot wounds to her chest and abdomen. This treatment unfortunately was unsuccessful and the victim was pronounced dead at the hospital. Mr. Buggs was tracked to several locations in Mexico and eventually to Alexandria, Virginia, where he was arrested and later extradited to Minnesota. On February 12th of 1997, Louis Buggs was sentenced to a life sentence of a minimum of 30 years for the offense of first-degree murder in Hennepin County District Court. Mr. Buggs has been previously reviewed by a commissioner and advisory panel in May of 2023 and was continued for a future review. Today's review represents his second review after serving approximately 30 years of incarceration. His minimum parole eligibility date will occur on April 20th of 2026. Thank you. I turn this matter over to the board. Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Buggs. Before I turn to you, I'm going to open the floor for a statement from Ambreen. If you would just introduce yourself, and then you can proceed as you'd like.
My name is Ambreen. Good afternoon. My father is Louis Buggs. My mother,
Can I have you? Yeah, just a little closer
Sorry.
to that. Sorry, no
Okay.
problem at all.
my mother is Cami Talley. First, I would like to take a moment to talk about my mom. Okay, I'm just gonna go. If I cry, it's fine. Cami Marie Talley was brilliant, funny, driven, loving, and kind. She grew up in a difficult household, yet she rose above every obstacle presented to her. She was dedicated, be it her family, friends, work, school, whatever it was, she gave 100 and made it look like 50. She graduated high school pregnant with me, but also with honors. She received a full ride scholarship to the University of Minnesota. However, they didn't have a major that suited her, so she petitioned the deans for a self-created major. I accepted her diploma in June of 1996, where she graduated again with honors. She was a friend to everyone. To this day, people still reach out to me, and I meet people that tell me how much they loved my mom and the impact she made on their life. She was a safe space for everyone, even when she didn't have one for herself. She was so much to so many. She was the glue that held our family together. But as a 4-year-old little girl, she was my whole world, my sunshine, my mommy, and she deserved her life. Growing up without her shaped me in ways I'm only beginning to understand. I grew up feeling profoundly alone and afraid. I wasn't able to let people love me. I didn't believe I deserved to be loved at all. To be honest, even with the most loving and supportive family in the world, none of that is enough to fill the emptiness. Because my dad murdered my mom, and nothing and no one can fix that. So instead, I want this board to understand who you're considering releasing. My father maintained his innocence for nearly 30 years. He did not admit guilt until 2023 at the pre-parole review, and even then, he acknowledged it to the board. Our family wasn't in that room. It was only after I confronted him, after I pushed, that he finally admitted what he had done. That is not remorse. That is a man who, after 3 decades, finally understood that admission was the price of release. He spent 30 years biding his time, and now that the door is within reach, he wants you to believe that he's changed. His disciplinary record during incarceration tells its own story, incident after incident, year after year, until suddenly everything stops, the year before the first pre-parole review. He didn't change. He learned what change needed to look like. The board has revealed his file. I have seen his violence with my own eyes as a child. This board has not lived with the consequences, but I have lived with them every single day of my life. I've been told that if he's released, an order of protection will be a part of the safety plan for my family. I need the board to sit with this for a minute. My mother had an order of protection also. She is dead. That piece of paper did not save her life, and it will not save anyone else's. I want you to each ask yourselves honestly, do you feel safe? This man began dating your daughter, your sister, your friend, because once he walks out, he doesn't go back into a file, he goes back into the world. I'm a compassionate person. I know prison is a terrible place, and I would not wish it on anyone lightly, but I did not make his choices. He did. I really don't want to have to be here doing this. I traveled over 4,000 miles from Hawaii to be here. But I'm here because my mother cannot be. And I will stand in front of this board time after time if it means that he remains in prison for the rest of his life. On the last morning of her life, my mom hugged me. She kissed me. She told me that she loved me. She was my mother. And she deserved to grow old. She deserved to be at my wedding. She deserved to hold my babies. She deserved justice. Again, I respectfully ask the board to honor this principle by upholding his life sentence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm just on behalf of the board, want to extend my condolences for the loss that you experienced for all these years. So thank you for being here. Mr. Buggs, I'm going to turn this to you to make whatever statement you would like and to talk about what it is you'd like to see happen as a result of today's meeting.
Commissioner Snell and the board, I would be grateful to see forward progress and go to minimum and then work release.
Mr. Bugs, anything that you would like to address in light of what you just heard?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that, none of the Woods or Talley family did anything, and they're not to blame for anything that happened. I take full responsibility for what I did and the harm that I caused them. And I'm not asking for forgiveness because what I did can't be undone. I would like to address. First, I'd like to say I'm sorry for taking Kami from them. The instant that it happened, I wish that I could have took it back, and not one day goes by that I don't regret what I've done. And I've lived with it every single day, and every single day has been hard. I would like to say to Maurice, Janine, Talea, and Katie that you guys considered me as a brother, a big brother, and I let you guys down. That you guys loved me and treated me as a brother for holidays and all the other different times that we were together. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about you guys. I was thinking only of my young, immature self and what I wanted, not realizing the consequences of what it caused you guys. And I'm sorry for that. And to Debbie, I want to apologize to you because you treated me like a son. And you gave me your daughter to trust. You trusted me with your daughter, and you, with open arms, allowed me into your family, and I let you down. And I apologize for that. And lastly, I want to apologize to our daughter, Ambry. This is the first time that I've seen you in 30 years on TV. And I want you to know that I'm sorry. And now one day has went by that I haven't thought about your mother and thought about you and what I took from you and what I took from your family. And I want you to know that when you had your first day of school, I thought about you coming home and your mom not being there for you. And I thought how that would feel. And I thought about your first year in school when you started to go to school for the full day and coming home and not having your mom there. And I thought about how that felt. And I thought about when you started junior high and had your first date and your mom wasn't there to tell you about it, and that I caused that to happen. And I thought about when you went to prom, that she wasn't there to dress you and to send you off. And I know that I caused that, and that I was to blame for that. And I'm sorry. And I know you think that I've done 3 decades and never thought about the harm that I've caused, but that's not true. I thought about every step of life that you take and the hard times that I caused. And I think about that it was all my fault and that it was this split decision that I made without regards to you, thinking about how you felt, or regards to the Woods and Talley family, how you guys felt at all. I was just a immature, emotional, and impulsive child that made a decision. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for it. And I know that I know how it would feel if I didn't have my mother, because my mom has been there during those times for me to support me. And she's there right now, sitting in the audience right now for me. So I can only imagine what you're going through and how you feel. And I listen to your words. And I'm sorry. No, I apologize. To all of you.
Mr. Buggs, thank you for that. Just a couple of questions. One of the things that came up there, and I just have to ask about, because I think there is this notion of the fact that there were things in place, orders for protection, separation, those sorts of things that were in place. And despite that, this happened. What lessons have you learned over the course of the last 30 years that would suggest that your respect for conditions, whatever they may be, whether it's a court order, or what would suggest that you would be in a place to be able to comply today in ways that you repeatedly didn't prior to your commission of this life sentence crime?
Well, sir, when I know that public safety and your job is to make sure that I would never do anything like this again. And I don't take that lightly. I know that when this happened, I was young and I was immature and I was emotionally disconnected. And now I've done things to address those things. And those things were my risk factors at the time. I've taken classes and read self-help books to address those situations, and I'm no longer that person. I teach conflict resolution and use conflict resolution. I recognize my triggers, and I learn how to cope with those. I've learned using self-talk. I've learned boundaries, reframing. I use exercising now to address stressful situations. I don't associate with criminal behavior anymore. And I'm not asking the board to ignore my past. I'm asking you to recognize that I no longer live under the same conditions that made me dangerous, and that I've done treatment. I've changed my life, not over months or weeks, but over years. I've made these positive changes in my life. I recognize that anger starts and it progressively there are steps to anger. And I learned to recognize those steps of anger so that they don't happen. I've learned to address those steps. In treatment, we had thinking reports, and your initial thought when something doesn't go your way, on how you think about the situation, and that initial feeling when it happens. I've learned how to address those. I've learned in decision points that there's a point where a decision becomes wrong and it becomes right. I read a book called The Four Agreements that talked about people living their own dream, and that the things that they do don't necessarily pertain to you, that you internalize what people do and make it about you. So, like I said with my apology, that nobody is to blame for my decision. I made my decision at that time, and I internalized it wrong. I didn't read the situation right, and I didn't act in an appropriate way. And I've made sure that no longer will happen again.
So I just want to first acknowledge that you have done and been involved in and completed many positive programs. And so I just want to make sure that's, crystal clear. You've done a lot of work in terms of release planning and so forth, which is laudable. But this whole notion of and I realize that change comes at different times. What was it that prompted you to go from, claims of innocence for much of the times of that you've been in, to finally accepting responsibility?
When I first came to prison, I was selfish and immature, and I just wanted my freedom. And then when my change started, I stopped thinking about myself and started thinking about the harm that I caused other people. And that's when I started reading self-help books and started taking classes like anger management and restorative justice and criminal thinking to support my growth.
And that's when you began to acknowledge? Is that
Yes,
okay?
I was never able to convey that to the Talley and Woods family. I would have liked to have, but I wasn't able to talk to them and explain that to them about the transformation that I had. But it's been since roughly 2004 that I made that change and began to change my life and to help other people and pass on my lessons that I've learned to others.
And as you think about your change, and you think about how you behaved at the time. I'll even use court as an example. How you behaved then, and remember, for a lot of people, that's the image that their people are left with, and who you are today. I guess let me just ask it plainly. at the time, there was some, conveyance of maybe continued outrage or whatever during the court process. Is that fair? Or at the end of the court process?
Yes, sir.
And kind of that maybe some righteous indignance or whatever. That's my word, not yours. And I'm not expecting you to accept that as the best description. But as I think about this, is that whole thing about like what people are left with, and this notion of even your daughter struggling with this notion of who is the person in front of me, and perhaps not being aware of all of the things that you've been through and all of the kind of the triggers for change. How would you characterize or explain the triggers for change? And you talked about being more of an ignorant young kid at the time of this offense, 23 and a half years old, roughly. And how, and really even having a history of some levels of domestic violence that were ongoing there. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And then you had some challenges, and this is not uncommon with your discipline history, especially the earlier time, probably more heavily. Later, it's tailed off, and I think 22 is the last time there's been any discipline, correct?
In 22, and I didn't even realize that that was on there because we didn't address that at our 27-year review, that I received no segregation for that sentence. It was a suspended sentence, and I was told that that was gonna disappear from the record until a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I saw that it just showed up on there. But when I signed that, I just wanted it. They told me that I wouldn't receive any segregation. I kept my job. It was no same or similar things, and they said that it would disappear off the record.
Okay.
It showed up.
Okay.
I'm not.
I
would
not.
like to address that, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
And what you said. Growing up, I was picked on when I was a child and I was younger, and I didn't like it. And I realized that the guys that weren't picked on were the guys who were picking on other people. And they were the tougher guys in the neighborhood. And I didn't want to be picked on. So I became one of those guys. And the guys that were the most respected were the guys who were the most active. And growing up, I thought that that's what a man was supposed to be. I grew up in a household where I didn't have a father for much of my life, and I was told that I was supposed to be the man of the house and that I was supposed to protect the house and protect my sisters. And I thought that violence was a way that you handle those type of situations. As I got older, I thought that violence was a way that you were supposed to handle situations. If somebody did something to you, that you were supposed to meet that challenge with the same or greater force. But I learned, and that showed during that sentencing, and I'm embarrassed about it, is that when I felt that everybody was saying stuff to me, rightly so, that I was supposed to meet that challenge with the same thing. And I was wrong. And it took me some time to realize that But back then, and there is no excuse. I can only give you the reason of why, but back in those days, 30 years ago, a man wasn't supposed to cry. A man couldn't go and tell his friends, I'm having problems with my relationship. And I talked to a couple of my friends at the time and I told them that, you know, I'm having a hard time. Oh man, quit crying about that broad. And they would say things like that, like, come on, man, you're not supposed to be weak or anything. Nowadays, men can have feelings, men can have emotional health and deal with mental health issues. Whereas before you had to suck it up and power through it or whatever. But I learned that it's okay to cry, and it's okay to cry in front of people, and it's okay to reach out to people and ask for help. And when you're going through some rough times, it's okay to have a support system of people where you feel free to be yourself and to reach out to those people and say, hey man, I'm having a really hard time now. And I found that in my community inside of here and with some staff members inside of here, where when I was going through a rough time, I could reach out to them and I felt comfortable with doing that. And as I did that, I started to learn that a man is not a man if he loses his sense of being emotional. Emotions make us human. And being able to ask for help and being able to suffer makes us human. And I've been grateful that there have been people that have been put in my life that allowed me to come to them and cry about situations that have happened that I had no control over. When my grandfather passed away in here, and he was one of the most important people to me in my life. My daughter told me that she went to his funeral and that Miss Woods took her to go see him and that she showed up on behalf of me there. And I cried about that to a friend of mine, that she cared enough to go and see my grandfather and show up there. And I know that over these years, our relationship has been good at times and been bad at times. And most recently, 6 months ago, we had talked and our relationship turned bad again, where that she said that she didn't want to talk to me anymore. And that really hurt me. And I went and I talked to my support system about it. I called my friends. I've got friends in here and I talked to them about it. And I understand now that I have to give people space. People don't move on my time or do what I want them to do. And I have no right to ask that of them. I understand that whatever people need to heal, that I would be willing to do for my daughter or for the family. Anything that they want to say to me, no matter how hurtful it is, I deserve that for what I did in there. And all I can do is assure you that that person is gone. That person is long gone. And I would never resort to violence again.
One of the things, I'm guessing that over the course of the programs that you've been involved with and so forth, and the fact that this in particular was a domestic homicide, And oftentimes, power and control are the dynamics at play. What's your understanding of the use of power and control? And how do you go from that as a primary mode in a relationship in particular, to now giving up on power and control?
I realized that in the past that I have used power and control, or dominant and aggressive tactics when I felt that I wasn't being heard, or when things didn't go my way. And I realized that those didn't help the situation at all. Those only made the situation worse. And what I've learned is that when those type of situations happen, that I need to take a step back, and that I need to let the other person talk, and I need to listen to what the person has to say. I know that sometimes it's hard not to challenge another person's beliefs if I feel that I'm right, but that everybody has a right to be right and to be heard. And I believe that at times, if those situations, or when those situations present themselves, that it's okay for me to get up and to walk away, or for me to table an argument or a disagreement, and to come back when everybody has a level head, when it's possible to sit down and talk calmly about situations. I learned to recognize that and I spoke about triggers, that when people's voices start to rise and they start to get aggressive, that's the time to stop before it goes any further. I realized in myself that when I start to feel tense or uneasy, that's the time to slow things down for a minute and to breathe, take deep breaths, and to count. And like I said, to get up. And I've learned these over years of facilitating groups and mentoring, that everyone has a right, and violence takes us from being humans and turns us into animals, because human beings can rationalize, animals react off of instinct. And I think that when we resort to violence, that we become our lowest self. And the change that I've shown, and the change that I conveyed to other young men, is to always be your best self, and to try to be your best self.
You just talked about the interaction 6 months ago or whatever it was, that where it became difficult between you and your daughter. And you talked about the fact that you had to come to the realization and recognition that people have a need and you have to honor and respect that.
Yes, sir.
Is that part of like what prompted the relationship to come apart, that there was some expectation on your part that she or others should act or behave a certain way, or acknowledge you in a certain way because you're dad or whatever it may be? I'm asking this question, just what your thoughts are.
Can you rephrase that a little bit?
So let me just make it really blunt. was there a level of dominance around, and I don't mean this in a really violent sort of way, but was there a level of dominance that you exerted just as dad over obviously your adult daughter about how and what she should do relative to you, or how she should feel relative to you, or if you put yourself in her shoes, like what did she hear from you in terms of your interactions?
Are you talking about our child or,
Yeah, I'm talking about your daughter, and just, you talked about the relationship kind of came apart over 6 months ago or something like that. And what drove that?
no, I've never showed any dominance over our daughter. I tell people that our relationship since she's been 18 has been like an infected wound that has, you take a scab off of it and it heals a little bit and then it gets infected again. And then you have to open it back up and then it scabs over again. So there's times when we're in a really good space and we've been in a really good space. And then there's times, rightly so, that she blames me for what happens. And I understand that with her. And I've always told her that no matter what, that she can always talk to me about anything and I'll never judge her. And that she can always come to me when any situation happens and I'll be there for her. During the times when our relationships have been bad, I have always given her space. And when times get rough, she'll reach out to me and I'll be there for her. And even now, I understand the fear, just like you said, because of the person that I was, that the family has of me. And it hurt that my daughter said that there would be a no contact order, but she still, and the family still believes that I'm still that same person, but, and that I don't respect their space and and who they are. And I would wait for her to reach out to me if it ever happens again. If she decides that she wants to talk to me again, if she ever does. And I understand if she never wants to talk to me again because of what I did. And it hurts. And that last time when I talked to her, I was in a room with 30, maybe 26 to 30 men that were on the phone. And I cried like a baby in that room in front of them from the things that she said to me in that room, and realizing that she still holds this hurt in there. And in her and her mother's relationship at the time, I believe that there was a lack of communication on my part. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to express the things that I was going through or the feelings that I had. And like I said, I was young and immature, and I wanted what I wanted at that time, and not knowing how to give a person space. The sergeant that's in my unit, he asked me probably 3 months ago, he said, what would you tell your younger self if you had a chance to tell your younger self something? And I told him that I would tell my younger self to listen to my mother, who said to give Kami space. And I would tell my younger self that this is not the end of the world. it may feel like it's the end of the world and that you hurt and that you can't get over it. But if I would have just listened to my mother and I would have realized that this is not the end of the world, that these feelings pass. Again, I'm talking to my 23-year-old self at the time. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you for that. Let me ask, I have two questions that I'm going to promise I'll get the others here. At the time of the offense, you committed the offense at, I think in a workplace, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then after the offense was committed, you went to other locations. Is that accurate?
No, sir.
Where did you go?
I left town
Immediately.
immediately.
Okay. You know that there are indications that you had gone to other family members' locations after the offense was committed?
I heard about that during trial, but that it wasn't me. It never happened.
Okay. I'm gonna just that question in a part B. Why should people not be afraid of you? Why should a family or others not be afraid of those bugs coming back into the community?
Because I'm a changed man. I'm not the person that I once was. I'm not impulsive anymore. I'm not young and immature anymore. I don't minimize things like I used to. I rely on accountability and support now, whereas before I believed that willpower and determination would give me what I wanted. I respect other people and how they feel now. And I'm no longer the individual that lived under the same conditions as before. I don't subscribe to criminal behavior at all. I don't feel like I have the right to other people's time or feelings like I did in the past.
Okay, last question. Can you just describe what you feel are your biggest strengths that you take with you and some of the challenges that you think you will face going forward, no matter what the decision is today?
I think that one of my biggest strengths is my communication and my ability to share past experiences and mentor the youth. I've mentored hundreds of inmates over these years in nonviolent conflict resolution and being the best selves that they can be. I've I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Just your strengths and some of the challenges you anticipate that you'll face.
I think that some of the challenges that I will face will be the technology gap. Everything is pretty much digital right now. And going to school to work on my bachelor's in communication and sociology, I've had a tablet, so I have access to use that. Some of my other challenges would be the speed of life now compared to how it was when I was out there. Everything seems to move faster. And I think that I will catch up with that. And I know that my support system is solid and that my support system will help me every step of the way when I run into trouble, starting with my parole officer, who I don't have a problem with reaching out to at any time when I feel that things aren't going well for me, or if I run into any problems.
Thank you. With that, I'll open this up to board members for questions.
Mr. Bucks, I just want to follow up on a question that the commissioner raised with you. And it was when you talked about your relationship with your daughter 6 months ago. Did you read the psych report that we all got?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and do you remember reading the part about the conversation you had with your daughter 6 months ago, and then the letter you wrote to her after that?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us what the phone conversation was like, and then could you tell us what you wrote in the letter?
When I spoke with my daughter, the conversation, I hadn't talked to her for a while, and I told her that I had been trying to call her, and I just wanted to know if she was all right. And she said, and I was gonna get off the phone after that. But she was like, is that all that you wanted? Is that all that you needed? And I was like, well, no. And she began to tell me about things that have happened in her life, and me not being there, and me taking her mother from her. And she cursed me multiple times in there. And I just listened, like I was saying, and tears ran down my face. And she had never talked to me in the previous year since she was 18. She had never cursed me like that before and talked to me like that before. And it hurt. And it hurt really bad that she said that she talked to me like that. But I listened to her and I let her vent and get that off of her chest. And she said she never wanted to talk to me again. And then she hung up the phone, and I didn't hear anything from her for maybe 3 weeks. And then I got an email, 3 or 4 weeks, I'm guessing. And then I got an email from her telling me to call her. And I sent an email back to her, and I told her that I love you with every fiber of my heart, and I do. And I said, I will always be there for you, but I'm not going to call you if you're going to cuss and talk to me like you did the last time that we talked to each other. And she wrote me another email back, and she said that out of any person, she said that I must have good, how did she say this? I must have good therapy in there, because now I'm setting boundaries with her, and that I should be the last person to set boundaries with her, considering that I killed her mother. And that really hurt me. And I realized that she was right, that I should, no matter what, I should allow her to vent and to talk to me however she wanted to.
My understanding from the psych report is when you spoke to her, she said she was angry with you because you had spent all those years telling her you didn't do it until you finally told her you did murder her mother. Is that correct? Did I read that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the writing to her and saying, don't you talk to me like that again. What do you think about that statement now? I'll just be honest. When I read that, I was appalled.
I didn't say, don't you speak to me like that again. I said that I will talk to you, but I'm not willing to call you if you're gonna speak to me like that. And like you said, I thought about it afterwards, after her response to that. And I realized that she was right, that she has the right to talk to me and to get her feelings out. And that I was sorry for writing that email, that part of the email to her on second thought. I know that kids, growing up, we weren't allowed to cuss at our parents or talk to our parents that way because they are still our parent. And I realized that she probably grew up different than to talk, to cuss at her elder, and that, like I said, she's a grown adult woman now, and that she has a right to talk to me, no matter how much it may hurt me. She probably needed to heal, and that I should have allowed her to do that. And I didn't have the opportunity to write her again. Because she sends a message and then she takes her name off, and I don't have a way to contact her until she writes me again. So I wasn't able to rectify that situation.
Well, I thank you for that. I just have to say a lot of people don't talk to their parents that way, but then a lot of people don't have a dad who killed a mom.
Yeah, you're right.
Other questions?
Mr. Buggs, I'm troubled by something that I've heard over and over, and that is past behavior predicts future behavior. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Have you heard that? Okay. Then referring to the comprehensive risk assessment that was just done less than 2 months ago, I wanted to read you this. Through his participation in programming, he learned conflict resolution skills, effective communication strategies, and various coping skills to improve his ability to navigate difficult circumstances. While his progress in this area is noteworthy, it is imperative to highlight how certain personality traits continue to contribute to conflict or maladaptive functioning in recent years. And it gives examples: adjustment problems in substance use disorder treatment, emotional outbursts with various staff, ongoing conflict with various family members. And then it continues, and the potential ongoing problems in this area may have in enhancing his risk of violence. And then it goes on to say a little later in that paragraph, Mr. Buggs' current statements suggest he may not appreciate how certain characterological traits contributed to his previous violent behavior and how they continue to contribute to interpersonal conflict in his life. Now, I hear you talk about the 23-year-old, and I hear you talk about yourself now as if you're two different people. But the comprehensive risk assessment says that that these traits continue to contribute to problems for you, and they give examples. How would you like to explain that? Or can you explain that?
Yes, I would like to say that there have been stressful situations that have occurred, but at no time during those situations did they result in segregation or any acts of violence. I recognize that I will forever be growing in my growth and be stronger in my growth. And I think that that shows over the past 7 years where I haven't had any segregation. The assessment, the risk assessment from the site also said that she says in there that if minimum is a thought, that I see no reason, no future risk and violence from Mr. Bugs. So
But
yes,
she also, excuse me, but she also says very challenging in treatment, struggling with resentment and externalizing responsibility for his problems. That seems to be a consistent theme throughout your time incarcerated and now. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that there's a concern there that really, you speak as though you're a different person from that 23-year-old, but some of those personality traits, character issues still exist, and they are character issues that lead to the potential for future violence. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Bugs. So you've used a phrase many times in the course of the hearing today, and it was also cited many times throughout the packet that I reviewed, and that's the characterization of you being young and immature. Like I said, you said that many times, that you were young and immature when you committed the offense, and I certainly acknowledge the fact that you were 23, almost 24 at the time of the offense. One of the things, though, as I've listened, and I know the commissioner referenced this, that certainly during your earlier years of incarceration, there was much more disciplinary history, but the disciplinary history really extended until you were 47 years old. And then at 47, you stopped. Like, I don't consider you young and immature when you're in your 30s and 40s. So how do you help me to square that? Like, and I say it because, like, you use the term that you were young and immature as that is the only reason that offense occurred, and so that's why I'm asking the question.
not only was I young and immature, I was impulsive. I didn't respect boundaries. I was angry. There have been times when I have been all of those things. But I've learned how to combat what was done in the past to make sure that it never happened again. I was selfish. I think that I have learned, in just speaking towards talking to other individuals in this prison and my age, and you spoke about me saying that I was young, that in this prison setting, I don't have the credentials to speak to some individuals that I would if I was like a sergeant or a lieutenant, or that's all I am, is an IP here in this situation. So all that I have is my sincerity and my humility. And at times I have been, my sincerity has come across as being dominant or argumentative at those times in there. And I recognize that, I can change those things, and I have changed those things and steadily worked on changing those things. And how I've done that is, like I was saying before, that I have learned that everything is not worth challenging. sometimes it's better just to walk away. Sometimes it's better just to let people have their opinion on it. You should pick your battles and what's worth discussing or arguing over. And I think that I've learned that, and I think that time has shown Ms. Voss said in when she was speaking that that these were reoccurring things or reoccurring themes in there. Well, time and what I've done during these past 7 years have shown this change. 7 years is a long time, but it's also just a start for me, because I will continue to live like this. I have continued to live like this. Yes, change came about later in life, but at a time when before Tom Roy, we were told that life meant life and that you're never getting out of here. And even during those times, I still took classes. I still tried to better myself, and I still worked with mentoring other individuals and helping other individuals.
Okay. Thank you for that. Just one more question for me. Have you, I know you have participated in a lot of programming, and I commend you for that. Have you taken programming specifically to that is kind of domestic violence related, or that is intended to target some of the kind of risk factors that are present with those involved in domestic violence?
Yes, sir.
Can you talk to me, like which programming is that?
The Alternative to Violence Project. In there, I was a facilitator in there since 2016. And in there, we talk about 6-point solving problems where a father comes home from prison and he wants his family to move, and he attempts to force them into moving and complying with his will. And we teach problem solving on how you have to talk about issues and how you work through those and come to a consensus of what you do in there. I've also took critical thinking, which teaches skills about listening to another person and hearing their point of view in a domestic relationship, and how people, before you immediately react, you have to look at other people's way of thinking and respect their views. I've taken anger management twice. I've taken decision points, which we address in there, in a relationship, that there are points in a relationship where before an incident happens in that relationship, there are key points, decision points that present themselves, and you learn to recognize those decision points. And those are the points where you can turn left or you can turn right, and they're critical in there. And we use self-talk during those decision points and empathy and reframing. Also, while I was working towards my bachelor's degree, I've taken many communication classes, and I think that communication is the leading cause of domestic violence and violence, period. I think that being able to listen effectively to other people and hear what other people are saying can alleviate violence on both sides. Also in AVP, we learned I statements, and I don't know if you've heard about I statements before, but I statements give you the chance to tell how you feel without blaming the other person in a relationship. So instead of telling a person, you didn't do the dishes, or you're not cooking tonight, you take the power of it into yourself and you say, I feel that when I come home, dishes should be done, or after I've worked in a hard day, that dishes should be done. If I do my part to dry the dishes, they should be washed. Or in here we use I statements because we're in double cells. I feel, and I'm speaking of dishes because guys will leave their dishes sitting on the table where instead of washing away. I feel that when I come back from work and there are dishes sitting in the cell, the cells stinks. I feel that we should live in an area where our cell is clean. And in the future, I would like to see our dishes done, are washed immediately. So we learn to present those situations amongst each other in here where we're in close quarters relating with people. And when you speak about domestic issues don't necessarily have to be between a man and a woman, especially not now in these days and times. Men have domestic issues too. And I spent years living with other men in here, and we've had a lot of different issues.
Certainly. Nope, I can appreciate that. And I acknowledge some of what you said. There is the power and control dynamic, though, which I know the commissioner had referenced earlier, which I think is a little bit different than some of what you're stating. But anyways, thank you for your response.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Questions for Mr. Buggs? Seeing none, I'd like to turn to Mr. Buggs' advocate, Mr. Schubert. And first, I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to open the floor to you to provide your thoughts regarding the changes you've seen in Mr. Buggs over time.
Thank you for letting me do this today. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear. Thank you.
First off, I met Lewis 30 years ago. In 1995, I committed murder in Minneapolis and got a 31-year sentence. And I did my time, and I've been out for 11 years. The way Lewis and I met, and it's funny because I had a bunch of things that I wanted to say, but if I'm being honest, you know, all through the years, I've seen all the different commissioners, and you know how it goes. You know, there's some commissioners that the door is shut. There's some where it's a little open, and some where they understand that no matter what, people are going to say bad things about you, and that's just how it is. You're in for you kill somebody. You're here. But for the people that know Lewis, they know him. They know this is a solid dude. This is a dude that'll give you a shirt off his back. when you talk about change or conflict resolution, everybody stumbles along the way. I've been out for 11 years. I got feelings all the time of being angry with somebody or this and that. Just because I feel like that doesn't mean I'm going to do something. The way he and I met, it was in Oak Park Heights. We had just come off of a lockdown because of a race riot, which I was involved in. I'm white, Bugs is black. And during the lockdown, it was ironic to me because we had just been locked down for a race riot, but during the lockdown on the institution channel, you know, where they play movies and they have the menus, all that stuff, they played the documentary Roots. Now, can you imagine that? You're in Oak Park Heights, you just had a violent incident happen, and while the prison is locked down, for reasons unknown to me, the prison decided they were going to play the documentary Roots. So everybody's in a room and this is what they're seeing. So we come off a lockdown, tensions are high. It was Bugs and I that eased the tension in the unit. This is almost 30 years ago. So it comes in waves, you know. He's a level-headed dude. Just sometimes people have emotions are emotions. And I've been asked, I've stayed in contact with in particular lifers since I've been out, and I've been out for 11 years without so much. I've had 2 parking tickets. That's what I've had in 11 years. Up until then, even in prison, I ended up doing about 22 years, and half of that 22 years, I was hell on wheels. You couldn't tell me anything. It didn't matter. If I went to the hole, I didn't care. It's like a light switch sometimes where it just clicks and you're like, oh man, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And I've been asked before to be someone's advocate. And the reason I've always been hesitant is because I've always thought that the parole board is kind of a predetermined thing. Like they already know what they're going to say before you see them. But since they've been aired on YouTube like they have been, I've been able to watch them. And I don't really believe that anymore. I watch you guys have your discussions, and I've seen members on the board change their mind about something, whether it's good or bad. I've seen them change their mind. And one of my job out here is, I'm not comparing my job to yours, but it's not unlike yours. I manage several apartment buildings throughout Minneapolis and St. Louis Park. And when I say I manage them, I do it all. I don't just get the apartments ready for the next renter. I'm the one who interviews the tenant. I'm the one who collects the rent. I'm the one who fixes everything. And I'm also the one who evicts everybody if they don't pay their rent or whatever that might be. The owner of all these buildings, until me, had never allowed a convicted felon in his buildings, let alone a convicted murderer. To date, I have 6 guys. I have several felons, but I have 6 guys in particular who were lifers, 3 of which this board here paroled. And they're our best tenants. They really, truly are our best tenants. And the reason I say I was hesitant to be somebody else's advocate is because it's almost like you got to have an ex-con on the parole board to kind of weed through the BS. You know, you're commissioner, you're former law enforcement, so you have more knowledge, I think, and experience with that. But I would not want to be on someone's advocate helping somebody get out that's going to mess up and then mess it up for the next lifer coming up to see you. That's, if I wasn't 100% sure that this guy is going to succeed out here, I wouldn't be here. I would wait until somebody that I thought was ready. He can't be more ready. He's already done the programs. He's done this. People don't always show it in a way you might want to see it. But I talk to him weekly. I've known him for 30 years. I come to visit him. You know who's going to mess up out here and who's not. Now, when you're doing time, everybody does their time a certain way. And prison itself is not really the punishment. I know society might think that, but prison itself is not the punishment. If you're a stand-up guy and you mind your own business and you don't have, you know, a crazy case, you're going to do fine in prison. Prison is just a means of keeping you away from society until your time is up, and if you're a lifer, until the parole board thinks you're ready. Prison is only a real punishment for somebody inside if, like for me, my punishment was calling my family on a weekly basis and having them go through struggles out here that I couldn't help them with. That's the worst feeling in the world. I've have family that have died, have been heroin addicts, father unhealthy, and there's nothing you can do to help them. For Lewis, from my experience watching him, and everybody, you know, they put up a facade in there. I mean, you don't want to be weak in front of somebody. You certainly don't want to seem like, you know, you're overly emotional. And I wasn't going to say anything because it's hard when you see a victim statement, you know, but I've watched him through the years when his daughter was speaking to him. And even if they weren't seeing eye to eye, it was still an uplift. Hey, you know what? She might hate me, but we're talking. And no matter what's going on in the prison, then he's feeling better. He's hopeful, you know. Then maybe a couple of years later, all the emotions roll through her again, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. And then you can see it go. He's like he's just been deflated, you know. It's and it's constant. It was been over the last how many years I've watched him go through that. When he calls me, I can tell when that has happened. My psych report before I left was worse than Bugs. I was high risk. I was this, I was that. But I've been out 11 years and I've got 2 parking tickets. And my job is I have to deal with evictions, and it's not, you know, a management company or the owner. It's me. I'm the one going to court. I'm the one getting papers. I'm the one knocking on doors saying, hey, pay your rent or get out. And that's conflict resolution there at its best. And I'm not back inside these walls. My only point to that is just because someone doesn't always react the way you want them to doesn't mean that they're going to come out and reoffend. You know, I look at Bugs and I know him. You guys don't know him the way some of us do, and I get that. And it's hard when you have a victim statement. I mean, anybody coming in front of this board is coming in front of this board because they have a murder case. And there's no such thing as a good murder case. So I guess my thing is, I had so many other things I wanted to say, but after listening to stuff today, I'm a little discouraged. And because I know him. And so the way I'll leave it is this is he's going to do well out here. He has a very big support network. I have work lined up for him. I have what is one of the biggest obstacles, as you know, is finding residents. Well, and it isn't like I just rent every felon and lifer, because I don't. I weed through them. And like I said, I have a few lifers and I have felons, but you know how many guys call me on a daily basis. Hey, the work release says I can rent an apartment. Can I get one with you? Absolutely not, because I know, you know, what I'm dealing with. And so the other thing is too, is before I left, I was an aide in Linden over in Faribault for 5 years. And it wasn't this parole board, it was previous parole boards. And I would watch these guys go through years and years and years and years getting turned down, and then finally getting released when they're in their 70s and up. What's the point? Why would you bother releasing them? Because they've spent this 30, 40 years in being the taxpayer's burden, and then were never released. Maybe some of them weren't ready, but a lot of them were. And it all depends on the political climate at the time. And you wait to release somebody until then, they're become the taxpayer's burden again. They're not going to earn a pension. They're not going to earn a 401, no sort of retirement. So they've just been released from this to go into another form of the taxpayers paying for them. I'm not saying that's a reason to let somebody go. That's just one of them. In Bugs's case, he's really going to do well out here. I mean, there's times where I wait for him to call because I'm going through something and I just want to hear his take on it. And I don't mean to be abrasive or if that's the way it's coming off. It's just that sometimes it's hard to understand the thought process when somebody does the 30 years, has been to you guys previous at 27, did the programs asked. I think there's never a set amount of time that says, okay, you've done enough, because there's victims involved. There's families to consider. But if the goal is to eventually let Mr. Bugs go, then I would hope that now would be the time to transition him so that he can get out here and earn some type of Social Security credits or a pension or 401, so that he's not lacking when the time comes where he'll need that. And he has a large support network out here, and it isn't just me. And so with that, I just, hope you take that into consideration.
So thank you. I truly appreciate, your assessment. You're seeing him over time and you're, kind of, the recognition. I don't want to diminish the fact that you have a perspective experience with him and, just being through a long bit of incarceration. So I do appreciate that insight. So thank you for that. At this time, before the board begins discussion and deliberations about next steps, Mr. Bugs, I want to briefly open the floor to you for any final comment.
I would just like to say again that I apologize sincerely and from the bottom of my heart to the Talley and Woods family and our daughter. And if there's ever anything that I could do to help you heal, I'm available to do that. And that you have complete control over all that. I will never contact any of you guys. I will never say anything bad about you. You have the right to feel how you feel, and I deserve that, how you feel. To the board, I would just like you to know that I have met all of the requirements that were set out for me at 27, everything that was done, and some of the things I did twice. And that I will not be a problem in society. I went 30 years in here without joining a gang or I didn't subscribe to any of that type of criminality. And on the street before I came here, I was a plumber. I worked every day. I'm not a criminal. I made impulsive decision at one time in my life that took the life of somebody that I wish that with everything that I had, that I could give back. And not one day has went by, not one single day has went by that I didn't regret that or thought about Kami and our daughter. And I apologize again.
Thank you, Mr. Bugs. At this time, I'm going to close the discussion. During board discussion and deliberation, the board will not entertain questions or allow interruptions. And with that, I would open this discussion to the board for thoughts around next steps. I will launch some thoughts and then I can I'm struck, because I think, and I'm pulled in a variety of ways here, just to be completely frank to everybody that's on here, whether that's Mr. Buggs, whether that is Mr. Schubert, whether that is the family who's paid a price that no one should pay, whether it's Mr. Buggs' family who are here in support. I'm pulled. And one of the things that I guess that pulls me a little bit is the fact that I feel a lot of, whether it's in hearing from the victim perspective, that sense of, push and pull of, is this person safe? Is he a risk? And yet I think the desire to want to, in some instances, see the good and see positive change and those sorts of things. I do struggle, admittedly, because, and I think this is, just would go to Mr. Schubert's comments, just as an observation. And I guess when, you're my age, I wish I was 54 again. And, there is some life to live there. And I think navigating coming out, I think he, provided a description of some of those challenges. He even talked in his documents about, the establishment of a relationship. But admittedly, I'm concerned still about the dynamics at play and the extent to which he truly understands the dynamics of power and control. I don't know exactly what the best intervention should be or what would cause me to have a higher level of comfort. But that concerns me. And I guess I do feel like there is some work to do there. I also think that, that desire that Mr. Buggs talks about, wanting to make sure that the people who have been impacted by his crime, the people who lost a daughter, a sister, a mom, an aunt, that they have an opportunity to maybe get some needs met. And one of the things that this process provides that it never did in the past was the opportunity to hear. Now, I don't anticipate or expect or believe that just because of this interaction and being able to hear Mr. Buggs, that it's going to change every belief or opinion or create a level of understanding. But I think it does provide people with an opportunity to get a sense of what perhaps makes Mr. Buggs tick today. And that is not the person he was then. And at the same time, I want to be, thoughtful about making sure that, at least in my feeling of obligation, is that public safety is met and that Mr. Buggs could be released into the community, have a relationship, whether that is an intimate partner relationship or relationship with his own family members, his daughter, whatever that may end up looking like is up to those individuals. But that power and control is not the dynamic that gets used. And I'm not so confident that we've been in a position to test that in a meaningful sort of way at this stage of the game. And so I'm certainly not in a position where I would support, parole. Obviously, we typically would look at step down here. But before I would be willing to really look at a minimum step down, I would like to see some more targeted intervention focused on intimate partner violence. Just so that I could feel that sense of we have addressed potentially a criminogenic need, that some of the more general programs, COG programs, may get into, and there may be some similar tactics. But having some deeper awareness of power and control, I think, is something that I just feel is necessary prior to step down. And I don't know what others' thoughts are about that.
Well, I'd just like to add, this site didn't give him a new risk level.
Right.
But it seemed to me it was going with the previous site report, which is moderate. And I would definitely want to see that. That worries me. I'd want to see that go down. And I understand the dynamic. It's a control dynamic between staff and incarcerated people. But we don't often read reports like this where staff they're pointing out his positives, but they're also pointing out his negatives. And I would want to see that change.
The power and control dynamic also concerns me because, and as much as I acknowledge in recent years that has, the disciplinary history is significantly improved with no significant discipline since 2019 or 2022, whatever it is. But, much of the discipline that was exhibited has very strong power and control dynamics to it. And so I too have some real concerns about that and would want to see some programming that addresses that, but also, I think that the sense that I have gotten in listening to him, I think that there is more awareness now than probably what there was 3 years ago on the impact of his offense and how that has impacted his daughter. I think there is some awareness. I would want to see additional time for more self-reflection on that front because, I phrased when I posed my question, I said, that he frequently references this young and immature, and I just, it's more than that, and I don't think the recognition is there that it's more than just being young and immature that caused this, and I recognize, there's just no question the power and control is a significant part that really needs to be addressed. So that is very much where I am at. I would need more time to see that some of the changes that have been implemented stick and are meaningful, and that there's just greater recognition of the link between the power and control dynamic and some of his past behaviors.
Maybe I just want to also just say that to your point, Andrew, is that that I do see Mr. Buggs, I think, has gained some level of insight, but I'm also mindful of the importance of hope and the need for him to see the possibility of that continued growth and effort pays a dividend. So while I do believe that there needs to be some additional intervention here, I also want to make sure that we're not being that it's time specific, that it can come back, that that we're mindful. I think certainly of the needs of the people, the victims here, and what their needs may be, and yet wanting to address any issues around concerns they may have, as well as Mr. Buggs may have. So for purposes of, I'm going to offer a motion. I'll move a denial of parole, a continuation for 20 months. I know that's unusual, off number, But part of this is really based on the fact that there's some new IPV program in partner violence programming that takes some length of time to complete. It's done 2 sessions a week, and I'd like to also see and would encourage that we seek a transfer of Mr. Buggs to wherever that program is going to be at. It's either, I believe, maybe Lino, but we can find that out exactly. But and for him to participate in that. I also noted in Mr. Buggs' letter that that faith and the faith that stuff that really meant a lot to him, influenced by his grandfather, was a major consideration in his life. And perhaps if he wanted to look at, I'm not making this a mandate, but if you wanted to look at PFA at Lino Lakes, that would be another option, because they do address some of the relationship issues as well. That would be the motion: remain discipline-free. But I would really want that if he does these things, does well, and hopefully that he would see a way forward by completing those things and gaining some additional insight, as has been discussed here. So that's the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. To the motion, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead,
Yes.
and Schnell votes yes. Mr. Buggs, I know this will come as a level of disappointment. At the same time, I hope you don't not hear the positive, the things that we have seen, and that you target the specific things that we're talking about here. And we will get a letter which will detail some of this as we go through this. And that when you come back, and to the extent that the family may wish to have levels of engagement, or your daughter, whatever that may be, that's up to them. But we would happily facilitate that opportunity for them as well as for you, should that be appropriate. But I do not want you to lose a level of hope, because that does not help you or anyone else either. Do you have any questions? Oh, you're muted on that end.
Yes, sir. The program that you speak about, I don't think exists. I've done every program that was available to me in all the places that I've been, and I haven't seen anything that addresses those issues as that program that you stated.
Yeah, it's brand new program that the EVP unit just put people in and developed. So it's brand new.
Okay. I currently have some health issues that I'm going through, and I don't know if those will be taken care of in that time period.
We will, monitor that. We want to make sure that gets addressed too, and your case manager there can work on with HRU and so forth, and we'll get, make sure that those issues are addressed, as well as, the things that came up here today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good luck to you, sir. All right, we'll be going to the last hearing here momentarily at Lino Lakes. Yeah, take a break. Yeah.
Lionel Lakes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Thank
Great,
you very
good,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate it. I don't see Andrew. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rebecca Holmes Larson, Executive Officer of Hearings and Release and the Supervised Release Board. We are here today to review Zykai Hoffman Vanderford, also known as Anna Marie Vanderford, who is participating through live stream video from the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Lionel Lakes. Mr. Vanderford also has an advocate participating. It's Mr. Max Foster, correct? Thank you for joining us today. Here with me at the Minnesota Department of Corrections Central Office is our Commissioner and Chair of the Supervised Release Board, Mr. Paul Schnell, along with board members Christine Bray, Cheryl Ramstead, and Andrew Larson. Our records indicate that on May 27th, 1987, Vanderford went into the home where Edward Thomas Whitcup and 3 other adult males lived. Vanderford was previously in a relationship with Mr. Whitcup, who had ended the relationship about a week earlier. Vanderford shot and killed Edward Whitcup with a 12-gauge shotgun while he was sleeping. On December 19th of 1987, Mr. Vanderford was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after a minimum of 17 years by Hennepin County District Court after having been found guilty of first-degree murder. Mr. Vanderford has been previously reviewed by the Commissioner and Advisory Panel and the Supervised Release Board and continued for a future review each time. Today's review represents his 8th review after serving approximately 28 and a half years of incarceration. His minimum parole eligibility date occurred on December 19th of 2004. Thank you. I turn this matter over to the board. Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vanderford. How are you today?
I'm good. I wanted to mention that that she said 28 years. This is 38 years.
Yeah, she may have misspoke, yeah, but 30, yeah, we acknowledge.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'd like to just start off by asking you to talk about what it is you'd like to see happen as a result of today's meeting.
I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to express remorse and accountability and discuss the directives that I have met and positive steps toward release.
Okay, why don't you go into that?
Firstly, I take full responsibility for the murder of my fiance, Edward Whitcup. I have previously mentioned and wanted to add that I have been willing to participate in victim offender dialogue. And there's a letter in the apology bank for people to access if desired.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about what, just as we go forward, what it is you would like to see happen and why?
I'm a completely different person than when I committed my crime. And at that time, I was a very immature young person at 19 and impulsive and isolated. How I've changed through programming has prepared me to become a contributing member of society. And in preparation for that, I've taken cognitive classes cognitive classes, and I came in with a high school diploma and now have degrees, enabling me to work and contribute to society as far as a financially independent person, but also to contribute in ways that I started here to my communities.
Can you talk about how all the ways that you're different today than you were at the time of your offense, and what influenced that change?
As a young person, I really didn't have coping skills to deal with my feelings. I felt at that time really humiliated, rejected, and I had isolated myself, didn't have sounding boards to get feedback, and didn't have the coping skills for consequential thinking. And now I make choices with forethought. I get a lot of feedback from my community, and I'm always thinking and reframing and taking a breath and really move slower in the standard for what aggravated me or bothered me or that I didn't know how to handle as a 19-year-old has changed now that I'm 59 this year. Just like activities or things that you would like doing at that age are different.
So when you talk about, the maturity and you were isolated, what insights have you gained into your offense, and not just your offense, but I think perhaps some of the challenges that you've had early on? What insights have you gained?
You can't make someone love you or want to be with you. You can't rely on people to accept who you are. It is okay to disagree. It is okay. You don't have to everyone's not going to be your friend, and everyone is not going to. They're going to be people that judge you. Or I had in that mindset, I really felt like if you got pregnant, you were supposed to get married, and clearly that is not. It's not true. It's not true to be a whole human being and to go on with your life and to be a productive person and a good person. That has really nothing to do. There's so many options that I had that I didn't see or didn't think of, and there was no friends to counsel me differently.
Your ability, have you seen big changes in your ability to receive feedback over the course of time?
I believe so. I believe that what bothers me or would upset me has changed incredibly. Like I said, the threshold for being angry and upset is different, and the options. If nothing else, I've learned in the Department of Corrections is it is okay to advocate, but there are avenues and ways to do that.
And what is the strategies that you use today, and how is that different than the past?
I definitely didn't have any yoga and meditation and counsel chaplains and groups to rely on or under my belt for coping skills or for help and to ask for help. And I absolutely ask for help and don't have a problem asking for help now.
The you have been very successful at education over the course of time. How has that changed you?
In my studies, there's actually quite a bit of life experience and things that I've discovered about myself. The more recent, they give you tests actually, and the more recent test that I took said that I would be best as a supervisor for a small family business because I'm not a risk taker and because I am very democratic in getting feedback. I just our basketball season just ended, but I was a coach here for a basketball team, and I did ask the players about how they felt about, playing before they were on the court and handling the pressures of being relied upon. And different people have engagements. So I feel that's a part of that rung true. So academically, that's helped to play out in cognitive thinking so many times.
Have you had a chance to read through the risk assessment document?
I'm sure I did at one point. I probably left those, I read them and probably a month ago.
There is the risk level, and again, this is just kind of appears as though there was in that moderate range. How do you wrap your head around that?
I really can't speak to someone else's perspective and evaluate and judge what impression they came away with on a certain day. So I don't know how to put that into context and give you an answer. We have a limited time for you attempt to get to know me, that I am not a violent person. I'm made a pledge of nonviolence and I have stuck to that for years. And I don't know how to address somebody else's thoughts and perspectives on me and why they got that impression, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I think and it sounds like it came out of, some level of concern around just history of some difficulty in receiving constructive feedback or information that you don't perceive as being positive. Has that changed in your view?
I agree to disagree on items and advocate for myself. There are a lot of opinions and that I can't combat, and I just have to do my best and carry on. And again, looking at the history, my history, I don't have violent rule violations and so their concerns, I'm not really sure. We all face criticism. You can face criticism about how you drive and I just have to carry on with my day and do my best not to offend people and not to have negative interactions with people that, have an opinion about something that's happened.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to other board members for any questions for Mr. Vanderford.
Mr. Benford, couple questions for me. So I see At the last hearing, one of the things that I think we had, the board had directed you was to participate in some cognitive behavioral programming. I see you did complete decision points, I think in September of 2025. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And the date, I guess, is irrelevant. So I'm not asking you for the specific date, but you did complete that programming. What did you take from that?
Again, it was reaffirming in the stop before you're taking pause with anything that you're going to doing and critically thinking about what you are thinking before you act.
Okay. Other thing I note is, and something I would certainly acknowledge on your part in terms of your efforts. So it looks like you also took some initiative to set up a new support group for lifers, those that may not be eligible for the full life just because of their where they're at in their sentence, that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that and what motivated you to do that?
Sure. I was tutoring for cognitively impaired gentlemen and youth offenders. And we have had a huge influx since Stillwater closed of long-termers, and some of which are youth offenders. And they don't qualify. I invited them all to the lifer meeting to find out they don't qualify for that support group. It was heartbreaking for the people that are sentenced to a long time not to have to know the other people here that could support them. And I had presumed prior to this that there was a place they could go. And in talking to the warden, he absolutely supported the idea of having a group for long-termers and suggested that I find some staff facilitators willing to do that. And of course, the staff are highly taxed, but did find support through the chaplain and 2 staff facilitators. So Archibong, Mr. Joshua Archibong is a counselor out of Triad, is taking on the gauntlet, and Sarah Wittenberg, which is a counselor in the sex offender program. I wanted to make sure that I could do anything to help facilitate that, and found a space, and it's gone through the program director, Tom Schoolcraft. So they're getting the curriculum together, and these young lifers that barely have any time in, and then guys that Lino was not prepared to deal with the influx of long-termers, because usually you had to be minimum eligible 3 years to a hearing and have a certain amount of time served, close to 30 years served, to participate in a group. And so now they have a population of long-termers that can support each other and get curriculum, because everyone's fighting to be in a group because they want to get their MRA credits, and the long-termers are put on the back burner. So it's just meeting such a need. And I was them coming in where you want to do not just what's required of you, but you're living life with family members dying, and you don't even know who the other people are that are going to be there past a month. And it was just something that it became a passion, and that put a fire under me because there's a need. And I'm so pleased that the staff see that and are also facilitating, and they've been wonderful about trying to meet that need and get that together.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One thing that your psychological review points out is that you need to identify viable alternative employment opportunities other than legal field, secondary or secure secondary vocational opportunities. And it says refining these vocational contingencies and continuing to develop strategies for process challenging feedback will be critical to supporting his long-term stability and reducing his risk of violence. I think what the message is there
that it may be difficult with your record to enter the legal field as either, as a paralegal or in some capacity. And so what that says is that there should be other vocational contingencies. And I'm just wondering if you've given that any thought.
Oh, absolutely. Why I initially mentioned the legal field is because through Minnesota Department of Corrections, I was one of the first 5 paralegals to graduate through the public law firm, The Legal Revolution. And for my capstone, they secured work for me to work under a lawyer and work on expungement cases. And they've also partnered with places to hire us. However, I'm willing to clean toilets if that's what it takes to enjoy some freedoms and rejoining a community. There are people that I know that are parolees that have served long times that are working for the Goodwill Easter Seals. If you have a bachelor's, which I do now, they will take you on as a career navigator, helping parolees. There's also the Freedom Reads organization through Reginald Betts, which is a lawyer that started hiring ex-felons to go into the prisons to talk about the importance of education and set up libraries. There are opportunities for educated, degreed parolees, but as I said, I mean, whatever is necessary. It wasn't a dream of some sort. I did have 10 interviews, phone interviews with law firms willing to hire me. Not all criminal law firms either, because they'll take people to work for free, law students and intern people, and then eventually someone, I believe, would give me a chance to hire me permanently. So it wasn't so much fanciful, but I'll do whatever it's whatever is necessary and willing to continue, the kind of work any kind of work I've done in here. I have vocational certificates for making dentures, full and partial. I can run a printing press, which may be obsolete. I did small engines work, wooden milling cabinet. I've done, quite a bit of between physical and or educational tutoring and clerking and personal assistant work. I was the editor for the paper for 4 years. So, anything that I'm able to do.
I understand. I understand. Thank you for your answer.
Mr. Vandefort, I have one question, and I want to read you what I read in your psych report.
Right.
Institutional documentation notes a pattern of defensiveness and interpersonal conflict in response to critical feedback. These behaviors are clinically significant because difficulty managing feedback and interpersonal tension can impact your ability to navigate supervision and adapt to the demands of community reintegration. And this struck me as important because what the psychologist is saying is you're going to run into some of the same things in the community, and she thinks it's really important that you learn how to respond. What do you think of that?
I realize that I can only control my own responses. I would like to note that I have had some very different encounters, and I believe that I have navigated them really well. People feel in here that sometimes they can blindside you with information that they think they have about you. And I think I've handled a great deal of it with tact and have been able to utilize my psychologist as a safe space to share these incidents and that not knowing exactly the psychologists, the professionals that we see for these, that they may have interpreted that I don't handle it as well as they think they should, or they think I should. Mm, Without getting too far out in the woods, for instance, I had someone tell me to pick a lane. I've had people tell me I'm going to hell. And I do not advocate for myself and stop and engage in in those situations. But I have had to advocate for myself where it's probably frowned upon. Um, and certainly I don't feel that I've not been violent. I don't have any of those ideations, and I realize there will be challenges out there as well, but I feel like people don't necessarily know that dealing with the fact that I'm a parolee may be something. I'm dealing with some of those other types of comments. I don't even believe that those situations are going to be a factor. I attempt to respond with respect and, like I said, agree to disagree.
Thank you.
Mr. Vanderford, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, I apologize. I just had one follow-up. So I know you've previously submitted apology letter, and that's been accepted. What do you think? What do you think you owe the survivors? What do you think you owe the family?
I can't claim to know what they feel and what they're going through. I will say that in my life, I think about Ed really frequently. Still, I we would have a 38-year-old child. And I think about how I impacted their lives. When my mother passed, I still talk to her. I still feel like I should be able to go to the phone. And she died of natural causes. I can only imagine that they felt like he should be able to, that he would come in the door for many, many years beyond my killing him, you know? And what I wanted to offer was through victim offender dialogue was just the deep, gentle listening skills of what they may need to say, because I don't know where they are on their journey of healing. And I really hope that they have been able to have some healing, some peace, and some closure. And what I most want for them to know is that I'm sorry that I hurt them by what I did. And that I don't want them to live in fear or be frightened. So I want them to know that there is a process and that it's available to them. And not every offender wants to be a part of that, but I am absolutely willing to.
And that process you're talking is the victim offender dialogue. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So we're just related to that. I want to read, there was, as a standard practice, we do it in all cases. Victim Services reaches out and asks those who are subject to parole consideration if they're willing to sign a release to share information with survivors if they so wish to receive it. And in January, you wrote back and I read this sentence and I read this little end here and I wonder if if it strikes you at all, in light of what you just talked about. In that last paragraph says, frankly, I don't think the victims are concerned that I have, and you talk about a couple of different medical things and, or I'm paying for my own dental care. Should the victim's family actually want more personal information or meet with me regarding, I remain open and willing to discuss this. So I hear what you're saying in that second sentence. What's the purpose of the first sentence?
Okay, so in writing you, I have had a lot of backlash that I didn't understand why there was backlash. There are people angry about my getting my MBA, not realizing it's a self-pay, it's not taxpayers paying. And in the release, they asked if you'll release medical information. And some people believe that gender situation is a mental health issue. And I want to be transparent and authentic and however the victims may need that, because I do feel a debt and owed to them and have no problem with sharing. But as far as from public consumption, I paid $30 for a stand-up urinate device. It's not,
And nothing here references any of that. I'm just
I wanted to let them
saying,
know what they might want to know, but not, but I don't think that a lot of that is relevant. A lot of the stuff that DOC asked for would be relevant, so, I thought that maybe some of it should be handled like separately versus, a hearing for, um,
okay.
release of information and a hearing for parole would be separate, but the victim's information sheet actually listed,
Different
those-
options.
yes.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to read more into it than I should, but
I guess what I'm
I
saying
don't-
is, should they want to know, I absolutely will,
okay, yeah. So I just, I hear that sense of like, I want to do this, but I don't think the victims are concerned that I have X, whatever, X, Y, or Z. And
and it listed that we have no control over the
let
information.
me, please let me finish. So I'm not taking issue with limitations of information for release. I'm not
Okay.
taking issue with that at all. All I'm saying is that I just heard you talk about how important it is for you that there is the opportunity for the people who were left behind by virtue of your offense to get what they need. And yet here in this statement, and again, it's just what you wrote, it comes across as though you decide or what they may or may not be concerned with. And, it just communicated something and it just struck me because of what the answer to your question just previous to that. And I appreciate the fact that, you're willing to do that. And I certainly, can't speak for anybody whether or not the family would have any ever interest in that is really would be up to them and if they were even involved. And so I think that really is it just struck me because I read something and I heard something different. Any other
Apologize.
questions? I'm sorry.
I apologize for the
No,
misunderstanding.
it's not at all, not apology. It's just a question. That's all. So any other questions for Mr. Vanderford? At this point, I'd like to turn to Mr. Vanderford's advocate, Mr. Foster. So first, thank you for being here today. And I want to open the floor to you to provide your thoughts regarding the changes you've seen in Mr. Vanderford over time.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. Good afternoon, Commissioner Schnell and members of the board. My name is Max. I've known Zakai for 3 years, and it has been an honor to count such a passionate, intelligent, and kind-hearted person as my friend. Though I didn't know him 39 years ago before the start of his incarceration, I've had the privilege of witnessing Zakai continue to grow as a person over the course of our friendship, even as he approaches his 60th birthday. Today, I'd like to say a few words to highlight Zakai's deep remorse, his ongoing personal growth, his strong reentry plan, and some of his exceptional qualities. I want to begin by acknowledging the gravity of the original offense. Zakai does not take the impact of his actions lightly, and it is impossible to describe the depth of his regret and remorse. I've spent many hours sitting with Zakai in the visiting room, watching tears roll down his face as he thinks about the grief and suffering he caused, desperately wishing that he could make things right somehow. So he has dedicated himself to becoming a person who contributes positively to the world. He has worked hard to cultivate positive, loving relationships with everyone around him. As a result, Zakai's positive influence has been felt by a long list of people, both inside and outside prison. He has been a dedicated mentor and advocate for younger inmates who need a steady hand. He has made use of his extensive academic achievement as a tutor and a teacher. As a basketball coach, he has provided focus and direction to his team. On the outside, he has built an incredibly strong support network of friends that is both wide and deep. I am proud to call myself one of these friends. Through this network of friends, he has found emotional support, logistical help for things that are difficult to manage from the inside, and even a home to live in should he be released. Zakai has also taken the Supervised Release Board's previous advice to heart. Since his last hearing, Zakai met all directives suggested by the board, and he has remained discipline-free. Zakai deeply values the feedback and programming offered by DOC, and that has shown up in his record. Zakai is also exceptionally accomplished by any standard. He has completed numerous academic programs and earned multiple degrees, including being one of only a few people to attain a paralegal degree while incarcerated. He's currently working toward his MBA. He's a published writer. His art has been shown in exhibits in Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and New York. Zakai also has an exceptionally strong reentry plan. By making use of his large and deep local support network in the outside world, he will be able to receive help with any adjustment bumps in the road. I, along with the rest of his support network, am committed to providing emotional, technological, transportation, and logistical support. Two close friends of his are excited for Zakai to live with them in their home until he is able to live on his own. He has developed professional connections with attorneys and paralegals, as he discussed before, that will help him get and keep a job. And he's also willing to do whatever it takes in whatever kind of employment necessary. Counseling organizations, including Canopy Health and Transforming Generations, have also expressed great interest in working with him. 38 years is a lifetime. In fact, it is longer than my own life. The man you see today is no longer the same person from all those years ago. He will never be that lonely and desperate teenager again, who only had ever experienced abuse and neglect from adult relationships. Now his relationships are built on trust and support. He has people he can rely on to be good influences and guides. In fact, there are even some of his friends and supporters taking time off work today to attend this hearing. If you are in the room to support Zakai today, please stand up. After getting to know Zakai, there can be no doubt that he is ready for life in society, and that society will be better off with him in it. I hope that you can see that he is no longer someone who would commit violence, not just because the recidivism risk for someone his age is near zero, but because he has demonstrated his peaceful temperament over many years. He will never stop regretting and attempting to atone for his actions 38 years ago. And if you let him, he will spend the rest of his life giving back. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here and providing.
Commissioner,
that
I have
input.
just
Yes.
one more
Yeah.
question.
Sure.
Did you continue to participate in mental health counseling? And if so, with whom and how often?
I have continued, I am continuing. I didn't ask my psychologist to be here, but I know that she is in the hearing with me. And through this Canopy Health was actually offered to me through the legal program. And so I have a counselor that I can call on the phone. Anusha, if I need to, as well as what's provided here. And so I see I see Denise Petrick, and her credentials are somewhere with your, I think on the letter of the directives met. At least monthly, but I also can put in a request any time to see her as well.
Have
And
you?
then I was going to, because the hearing was coming up and she saw me before I saw her. And quite honestly, there are other staff members too that check in. Sarah Wittenberg, the facilitator for the case manager and facilitator for the long-termers group, is someone that has been a bastion of support if I'm having any issues with running into people that take issue just with my existence. There's been other people to kind of well, they're friends, but for lack of a better word, therapists in your life that I'm able to come in contact with and utilize for feedback and help and so I haven't had to be as taxing with Ms. Petrick as maybe one would think. Just having so many other people in my life to talk about how things are going.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, Mr. Vanderford, before the board begins discussion and deliberation about next steps, I want to briefly open the floor to you for any final comment.
I want to thank you for your consideration and the opportunity to make progress in my sentence. And I want to thank, I didn't get to see on camera any of the people that took the time off of work, these amazing angels, for their mercy and support. They increase my faith in humanity and inspire me to be the best version of myself, as they have always been in service to the larger community. And I hate taking them away from good work that they do with other folks when I messed up my first chance at life and I'm asking for a second chance. So thank all the people that see the good in me, and I do not want to let myself down or any of them down. And I appreciate the time and the consideration that they've taken and that you've taken to hear me.
Thank you for that. And at this time, I'm going to close this portion of the discussion. During board discussion and deliberation, the board will not entertain questions or allow interruptions. And with that, I would open the floor to the board for purpose of discussing next steps.
I think I was a little confused by this psych versus the last. The last was moderate risk to reoffend, and there wasn't anything this time. So are we to assume?
I think it does say, importantly, the violence risk level determined by the last CRA remains unchanged.
Okay. I also think one of the things that was mentioned in the program review narrative of March 11th, 26th was evident here today, and that was that he has a difficult time answering questions directly. I thought this was particularly true with whether he'd seen the therapist, but it showed up in other areas. And the psychological review of the defensiveness and interpersonal conflict in response to critical feedback also came through today, in my estimation. Yeah, I think the concern, I don't know about his risk to public safety at this point, but I do have a concern. I think he did answer my question about the psych report, and it was he respectfully disagreed with the statements. And so my concern is just his ability to receive feedback from others. And the psych report was pretty specific about that could really impact his ability to navigate in the community. So kind of on the fence.
And I too had kind of noted that, and I guess it's maybe just a question for or a talking point for the group. Like, I wonder, like, how can that be tested? And I don't know the answer, and so maybe that's partially why I throw it out, because I do, I remember the last hearing 18 months ago. I feel like there has been growth. Like I feel better about some of the responses and just some of just the general hearing and the hearing in general. I think is I think there has been improvement, but I too just wonder about how do we test that? How do we test that defensiveness, that interpersonal relationship, and that interpersonal conflict, and how can that be tested? I guess, and I'm a little stuck with that.
Well, are you stuck because you're thinking, do we move him to medium, or do we move him? Do we start step down and test it that way? I think that's where I'm at. I'm just not sure. But
yeah, that's kind of, I mean, one of the things that I guess I'm thinking is from a test standpoint is he has done what, was asked to do. I think the question is, as we start to kind of expand that level of some level of freedom, liberty, do we see that the continuing pattern of defensiveness and conflict, some of the stuff in feedback, and how far we go with that? I mean, I guess one of the questions would be, do we run them to minimum, run that for a year, and then see them again? Because at least then what ends up happening is we're actually taking this in bite-sized chunks. And if that goes well, then, you know, you further test that by work release. I don't know how else. I think your question was exactly the question I was going to ask. You know, I think is how do we test that, move this forward, and just see that level of willingness to take, receive feedback, address conflict, and so forth, in a different level, in different setting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if for no other reason than to, I guess, facilitate some additional discussion, I would make a motion to deny parole, continue for 1 year, but transition to minimum to begin the to test that. So if for no other reason than to facilitate some discussion, I would make that motion.
Well, I'd second it.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. I think it makes sense to test this. I think Mr. Vanderford has heard some of the concern stuff, and I think one of the things that I would, encourage maybe is that that he seek out places where he can safely request that kind of feedback from staff or people, trusted people, in particular where they may see reactions to things or higher levels of defensiveness and some of those types of issues if they arise, and to actually solicit that feedback so that he has his own way of measuring and learning and hearing from others if and or when they may see that in others. And obviously, it would also, it should go without saying that he would remain discipline-free and continue to maintain access to, his counseling supports, and activate that as he needs to, and especially as he's looking at this transition and what it may mean, because even being outside the fence, even though you're still at a facility, being outside the fence itself is a transition. So I guess with that, I'll just call a vote to the motion. Board Member Bray.
Yes.
Board Member Larson.
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead.
Yes.
And Schnell votes yes. Mr. Vanderford, you've heard this. We will, the team will begin to initiate a transfer to minimum custody. You've come back in a year. You heard, I think, hopefully really clearly kind of what some of the issues are. And, and I would just really encourage you to really be as, really put yourself out there in terms of, in a safe sort of way, requesting that kind of feedback from people, and just to help learn. And then it also helps you when you come back before the board next year to be able to discuss, kind of what feedback you got from people and just provide a level of self-evaluation around that. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. We have a couple of items of new business to take up. Now that the case stuff is cleared, we have 3 requests for supervision discharge. The first case is a discharge request from Michael Hoffman. And for people who may be watching or listening, there is a policy whereby people may request discharge from supervision, parole supervision, after 10 years of successful involvement in community supervision. Supervision discharge is not guaranteed. It is strictly and statutorily within the role and the authority of this board. The board may, just for purposes of people's awareness, as it relates to discharge, the board may grant a person on parole final discharge from any sentence when the person has complied with the conditions of parole for a period of time sufficient to satisfy the board that the parolee is reliable and trustworthy, that the board is satisfied that the person on parole will remain at liberty without violating the law, and finally, that final discharge is not incompatible with the welfare of society. And then it provides the details into how we record that and grant that. And so first case for consideration of discharge is that case of Michael Roy Hoffman, who has been on supervision for a period of 10 years. I believe all of the members have received documentation from his supervising agent and his request for discharge and the rationale. Is there a motion relative to the discharge request of Mr. Hoffman?
I'll move to grant the request.
There is a motion to grant the request for discharge of Mr. Hoffman. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none to the motion for discharge, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead,
Yes.
and Schnell votes no. The discharge is granted. Discharge request from for James Moore. Mr. Moore has been on supervision since being granted parole 11 years. And has had no issues. I believe we've all seen the packet, including his application for discharge and the reasons why. Is there a motion relative to Mr. Moore's request?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion to grant, and is there a second? I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? To the motion, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead,
Yes.
and Schnell votes yes. Third request for discharge was on Jesse Shea. Mr. Shea has been on community supervision for a period of 28 years. Mr. Shea had a violations resulting related to some DWI stuff and some positive UAs back in 2009 and 2007 respectively. Were those both restructures?
They had, the violations have to be at least 7 years old.
Yeah, But and they were they met at the time in violations? Were they restructures to your knowledge? Or were they returns?
No.
Restructures.
Restructures,
Okay,
yeah.
restructures. Okay, and so there has, he has met the terms, currently 75 years old and has had nothing, no issues since 2009. Is there a motion relative to Mr. Shea?
I'll move to discharge from parole.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? To the motion, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead,
Yes.
and Schnell votes yes. And all three cases, discharge is granted. One other item of business from the last meeting is a motion to approve the March 24th, 2026 meeting minutes.
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion prevails. The meeting minutes are approved. We have no public comment. The next meeting of the Supervised Release Board will be Friday, May 8th, here at the Department of Corrections. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.